Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm David Kerr from Lansing in Michigan, and these are your latest news headlines from around the world. Pope Francis has apologised to the Indigenous peoples of Canada for the historic wrongs he says were done to them by the Church over many generations at government-sponsored residential schools. The Holy Father expressed his sorrow on July the 25th while addressing members of the Indigenous peoples in Maskwacis, which is situated 43 miles from the city of Edmonton in the province of Alberta. It was the Pope's first public engagement after landing in Canada the previous day at the beginning of a week-long visit. The Pontiff said, "I am here because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage among you is that of again asking forgiveness, of telling you once more that I am deeply sorry."
Me encuentro entre ustedes porque el primer paso de esta peregrinación penitencial es el de renovar mi pedido de perdón y decirles de todo corazón que estoy profundamente dolido.
Hundreds of Indigenous people had gathered to hear the Pope. Also present were Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Governor-General Mary Smith, 4 chiefs of the Indigenous peoples of the area, Grand Chief George Arkand of the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations, and former Grand Chief Wilton Littlechild. The Pope also added that there needs to be a serious probe into the facts of what took place in the past and also to assist any survivors of the residential schools. Meanwhile, the Vicar of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Church in Maskwacis, which has a strong presence of First Nations parishioners, has said that it is necessary for the church to find room for Indigenous communities. In an interview with Shalom World, Vicar Father Roger Rouleau said that the theme of this week's papal visit, that of walking together, has to be a continuous process. Father Rouleau also said that Catholics should not be threatened by the truth or by giving ear to somebody's story. Instead, they need to give the space to listen to Indigenous peoples, and that is where the walking together begins, he said. One of the more noteworthy moments of Pope Francis's meeting with the Indigenous peoples in Maskwacis was the singing of songs in the Cree language. Cree is one of the Indigenous languages which it is said were historically suppressed in residential schools. Prior to the papal visit, Shalom World was able to speak with the First Nations elder in Maskwacis, who is also a former student of the Ermineskin Indian Residential School. In her interview, Mary Stoney told Shalom World how traumatic it was in school, especially when they were prevented from conversing in Cree, their native tongue. When she questioned one of the nuns, Ms. Stoney claims she was told that it was done to help students speak good English.
She says it's because you have to learn, to speak good English so you can do your businesses when you get out of the school here.
Mrs. Stoney believes that one should not condemn the church, nor those who follow the Catholic faith. She also expects that there will now be peace and no more condemnation of the church for what took place in the past. Elsewhere, on Monday afternoon, Pope Francis held a meeting with members of the Sacred Heart Church of the First Peoples in Downtown Edmonton. In the church, the Pope was welcomed by its Indian vicar, Father Surya Jesu, an oblate missionary. Addressing close to 250 people, the Pope said that reconciliation is the gift of Jesus to overcome the pain caused by the Church's role in the government-sponsored residential school system. Most of the congregation were members of Indigenous communities. The Pope expressed pain over Catholics contributing to what he described as policies of disenfranchisement that rob communities of their cultural and spiritual identity. Concluding his address, the Pontiff noted that the 4 poles, shaped like a teepee in the sanctuary, recalls the Old Testament tent of meeting where God dwelt among the Israelites during their sojourn in the desert. After imparting his apostolic blessing, the Pope also blessed a statue of St. Kateri Tekakwitha, the first Native American to be canonised. Tomorrow, the Pope will preside over Holy Mass in Edmonton. Meanwhile, in other news, in Nigeria's latest episode of violence, 17 people, including 5 police officers, have been killed by armed bandits in separate attacks over the past week. A group of nearly 300 bandits attacked a police station near the village of Gatakawa in the Kankara district in the northern state of Katsina on July the 20th, killing 5 officers, according to a police spokesperson. In another separate attacks on the same day and the day before, at least 9 other people were killed. Forests in the northwestern part of the country have proven to be hideouts for bandits who attack, kill, kidnap and steal livestock. Katsina State tends to be more vulnerable to bandit attacks from the neighbouring Zamfara State, where the main bases of these bandits are seemingly located. Despite the attacks being motivated by money, the authorities also fear the influence of jihadist groups, which have continued to destabilise Africa's most populous nation for the past 13 years. In what the Philippines police are describing as a targeted assassination, 3 people, including a former mayor, were killed in an attack on a university campus in the capital city of Manila. The incident occurred at the Ateneo de Manila University on Sunday, July the 24th, where law students and their families had gathered for a graduation ceremony. Authorities reported the death of Rose Furigay, a former municipal mayor in the southern province of Basilan. Her daughter was among the graduates. The executive assistant of Miss Furigay and a security guard for the university were also killed. Meanwhile, the former mayor's daughter and a bystander were wounded in the deadly attack. The university campus is currently closed following the incident. Despite attempting to flee, the chief suspect was quickly apprehended by police following a chase. Police found 2 handguns thought to have been used by the suspect, whom they identified as having a long history of legal issues with Miss Furigay. A New York-based human rights watchdog has released a new report charting alleged Russian war crimes in Ukraine following the invasion of the country in February. Human Rights Watch gave particular mention to events in the military-occupied Kherson and Zaporizhia regions of southern Ukraine. The report, published on July the 22nd, accuses Russian troops of torture, illegal detention and forced disappearance of civilians. It also blames the Russian military for 40 cases of civilians disappearing or being detained illegally. Human Rights Watch also gathered evidence through interviews with 71 people, including former detainees, torture survivors, victims' families and other witnesses. The US Commission on International Religious Freedom has published a report on the Iranian government's continuing attacks on religious freedom. The report is entitled Religious Propaganda in Iran. It was published on Friday, July the 22nd. It claims that minority religions such as Christianity, as well as women, are at greater risk of persecution in Iran. The report notes widespread religious repression in the Islamic nation, with the targets being Christian converts and some Muslim minorities. The paper accuses Iran for, quote, its ongoing systematic and egregious religious freedom violations. It also requests the US State Department identify Iran as a country of particular concern due to its continued and persistent assaults on religious freedom. Finally, Australian film star Russell Crowe will play the role of the former chief exorcist of the Vatican, Father Gabriel Amorth, in the upcoming movie The Popes Exorcist. Directed by Julius Avery, the movie depicts the real-life figure of Father Amorth, who is credited with performing more than 100,000 exorcisms in his lifetime. The priest, who belonged to the Society of St. Paul, died in 2016 at the age of 91. May he rest in peace. He is also the author of 2 memoirs, An Exorcist Tells His Story and An Exorcist More Stories. The movie is set to have its premiere in Ireland in September. Well, that's your latest headlines for now. Do join us for more tomorrow. You can also join us at swnews.org for news updates. Shalom.